Peter Loubardias has been on every one of our previews, and why not make it three in a row as we welcome the longtime Calgary Flames broadcaster and, if I may, Hockey Canada aficionado. Lou, happy holidays and welcome back. And is it truly, like Andy Williams sings for you, the most wonderful time of the year?
This year, Roddy, if our friend COVID allows it, it's going to be the most special World Junior ever, because for the first time ever, my 15-year-old son has caught the World Junior bug. And if God willing, it's meant to be, his dad will probably be in a puddle on December 26th in a couple of days, enjoying Canada and the Czech Republic with my son. So, yeah, it's a special. I love it. There's probably my favorite event annually on planet Earth. There's no bones about that. And now maybe a chance to share it with my son. Just something, my son's on the spectrum. I didn't necessarily think he'd ever get the bug, but he doesn't even know what he's in for next if the bug really continues.
Did he even have a chance, Lou? I would suggest that he did not, as your son.
No.
But that reminds me, well, what?
No, he had a chance. I mean, listen, he forgot more about NASCAR than most people will ever know. And my old description of NASCAR was put a penny in a toilet and flush. So, the one thing I will tell you, Rod, is this. There are a few similar things between my son and I, and that is when he's in, he's all in. And I didn't necessarily know that he would ever get to this point, but I'm not disappointed that he is.
Unfair of me to say he didn't have a chance being your son, because yes, you allow him to make his own choices. And I've watched those Instagram lives, by the way. The NASCAR stuff is highly entertaining, but you guys also did your Instagram live post-game shows last year during the World Juniors, and I loved it with little Lubo. So we got Alan Miller on, the director of player personnel on this show, talking about the Hockey Canada roster and how it's got more fire and more grit than last year's team that lost 2-0 in the gold medal final against the USA. Did you see some of the camp sessions, Lou, in Calgary, or could you attest to what Al's saying is true?
Yeah, I've seen a lot, Roddy, and certainly for these purposes, we'll have attended pre-tournament games as well. In the camp in Calgary, and I went to Banff. There's no doubt, especially up front, I like the different elements of this team. They're bigger, they're stronger. If indeed they play Neighbors, Greg, and Justin Sordiff, the Western Hockey League line together, that's a nasty, no fun group to play against. They've got excellent skill. They've got Mason McTavish. They have, including Neighbors. They have players who have already played 9 games in the NHL. In Owen Power and Caden Gooley, 2 absolute studs on the back end. I like all 3 goalies. We'll see how that sorts itself out. I like most teams, Rod. This team is different than last year's. I thought from top to bottom it was, incredibly skilled. I'm not sure it's as deep on defense as last year, but its top end is arguably better than last year. So this is a good team, and this is going to be a team that's not going to be a whole lot of fun to play against.
I'm not sure if you see that there, but that is the roster put up. But it's in alphabetical order, not lines 1 through 4. But it's just interesting that Connor Bedard is listed top line left wing. Of course, he's never played left wing in his life. That came out from Hockey Canada. But what did you think? Had you seen Connor live before the camps?
I did. I finally got to see him in person when the Pats rolled in for a morning game against the Calgary Hitmen. And I certainly wasn't judging him there. Rod, my judgment on Connor Bedard was made in May and late April at the World Under-18 when he did marvelous things. 14 points en route to a gold medal. He had 10 of those 14 points in the 3 playoff games. It's as a double underage in the tournament. you guys know everything there is to know. You've watched him a million more times than I do. But, whether it was that tournament or even what he did in the first pre-tournament situation, as in the first camp game against U Sports, where he was in on every goal and scored 2 of them. This young man just has an absolute flair, it would appear, for the big stage. Now, how it turns out this time, I certainly I wouldn't bet against him. And I wouldn't bet against him because there's a lot of great players. And I've watched a lot of great players over the years. And I don't think I compare him to McDavid or, some of the others maybe that have come along, Crosby. But this guy's got something about him that you can't really put a finger on. And it's really important. So will I be surprised if he scores a big goal or 2 along the way? Not for a second. In fact, I'm probably expecting that to be the possibility, but understanding that even in camp, Rod, to be 16 on this team is not easy. We know how rarely it has occurred in our country. From a defensive standpoint and an ability to check elite level people, Connor, like every other 16-year-old, even Connor McDavid at 16-year-old, has got work to do. But his hands in tight spaces, it's silly. It's silly what he can do.
Oh, he's so fun to watch. I thank God.
Yeah,
I do, literally, for having the ability to have watched him live in these formative years in junior hockey. But Lou, Shane Wright didn't even play for Team Canada at 16, and he's not getting as much pub as Connor, but that's because it's us. We're not talking about him as much. What have you seen out of Shane Wright, the top prospect for this year's draft of the Kingston Frontenac?
I think the only thing that Shane needed was to relax. I think he put so much pressure on himself, Rod, not only last year in Red Deer at the camp, but even when I watched him in the summer camp in August, he looked, and I talked to a couple people at Hockey Canada, and they said to me that, with this guy, maybe just whisper in his ear before camp even starts that he's going to be on the team. And that's kind of how it played itself out because, the 8 or 9 locks to make the team, they didn't even play in the 2 games against U Sport. So he wasn't part of the group, but his smarts, his savvy, there's comparisons for me, and I don't like to compare, but, there's some Ryan O'Reilly there. There's some Patrice Bergeron. He's highly competitive. He's a terrific kid. He's a great leader. And I think last year, the team was really, really talented. And he didn't find his way. He'll find his way. And I won't be surprised if he ends up being Canada's best center in this event at 17. And that's not easy to do.
You mentioned Owen Power and Caden Gooley. If there is a hockey god or a hockey baby Jesus, they'll play together. Have they been together? Those guys are pretty big studs. No?
No, I think you're going to see them together. In fact, when you get to the medal round, depending on how things go prior to that, it's a nice little friendly piece to have in your pocket to roll those 2 guys out. But Rod, I don't think they're really in a situation early in the tournament where they need to. And I don't want to take anything away from the other guys, the other 6 guys who made the team. But those are elite people at the top end of the defensive core. I have really liked a couple of other guys to this point, starting with Olin Zellweger, an 18-year-old who was great at the World Under-18, a member of the Everett Silvertips, who looks like he may start the tournament on a pairing with Owen Power, and Lucas Cormier, a Vegas pick. Looks like he'll be paired with Caden Gooley. But, to have those 2 guys to potentially even be on a power play, maybe more importantly, kill penalties, but they're different players. You're going to see Power very likely, Rod, quarterback the first power play. And on the other side of the equation, you're going to see Caden Gooley on the ice in every difficult defensive situation, including a first defensive pairing penalty killer. we get talking all the time about offense and people who produce. But I'm going to tell you, with all my experience and all I've watched, there's a couple of things always. And I'm sorry for repeating it on even this show. There's the difference between winning and losing at the World Junior. And your ability to check elite level people is the difference. Go back to the gold medal game last year. The Americans played a marvelous game. They kept our top people in check, and we had a harder time dealing with Zegras and some of their top people. So, it's great to have those two guys to help anchor that group.
Well, it was very clear that Zegras and Caulfield were NHL players playing last year, but Owen Power and Caden Gooley pretty much are too. And I guess that's what makes the tournament so fun. By the way, the other night at the Panthers game, I can't remember if it was the Ottawa game here or the Blues, but they recognized Justin Sordiff of the Vancouver Giants making Team Canada, which I thought was interesting. And a big whoop went up from the crowd. So believe me, Lou, they're watching very closely here in Florida, believe it or not, on the NHL Network. Any thoughts on the goalies? There was no competition there. They named the three: Brett Brochu, Dylan Garand, and Sebastian Cossa. There was no competition there. The competition is to see who starts on Boxing Day. That's it. How do they look?
They're good. I think they're different. Cossa, the first round pick of Detroit, 6'7", 210 pounds. Very athletic, highly competitive. Was great in the game, at least the first game against U Sports. His numbers with the Edmonton Oil Kings are off the charts. He has everything in a goalie you would want. The only minor concern, Rod, I would have about Sebastian is he is so fiery at times that, you can't let your emotions get to you and even have a bad period in this tournament because it can cost you a gold medal. Garand of Kamloops, fabulous numbers, steady, technically sound, was around last year, played in just one game, and he has been really good. And then kind of, the dark horse, if you will, is 5'11", Brett Brochu of the London Knights. And frankly, Brett reminds me a lot of Canada's star goalie last year who came out of nowhere, and that was Devon Levi, who was brilliant and the tournament's top goalie. He's athletic, never gives up, highly competitive. So it's going to be interesting come Boxing Day afternoon to see who gets the nod. I think they might be leaning Cossa to begin, but, don't be surprised if it changes as the tournament goes along either. I know I won't be surprised.
Gents, how are we doing on time? We got a few minutes left here? Because obviously Lou and I could go on forever on this. I just got to ask you, watching Canada in that rink in Banff, was it one of the greatest experiences of your life, Lou? I've watched many a Pats practice there. Maybe you have too. We used to have respites there, like 2-3 day breaks on the way out to the West Coast trip. It must have been amazing.
I love this game so much, and I love it at so many different levels. Rod, not quite. The practice I saw in Banff, I stood right at the glass, and I was just utterly amazed by the speed, the size, the skill, because where I watch most of the games from. Game looks pretty easy from 100 feet in the air. I never cease to amaze at how good these young people are at their age, how competitive, how little space there is, how big and strong. A treat. It's not the greatest hockey practice I've ever seen, because the greatest hockey practice I've ever seen was in Gimli, Manitoba. It was minus 110, I swear, that day, or close to. And it was the 2005 group. And Brent Sutter, as the coach, put them through 45 minutes of nothing but 1-on-1, 2-on-2, and 3-on-3 battle drills with Crosby and Phaneuf and Carter and Getzlaff and, Seabrook and Shea Weber and go on down the line. And that, to this day, is the greatest 45-minute hockey practice Corey Perry, watching that incredible group go at one another. And I remember I was with Ken Wiebe of Winnipeg, my dear friend who works at Sportsnet. And I said, hey, boys, take it easy. We need somebody left for Grand Fourth. But this one this year took me back a little bit to that particular time.
I'm ashamed. I've just had to Google who Canada's goalie was on the greatest World Junior team ever, 2005. Who was the target? Lou, do you remember?
Oh, of course I remember. Jeff Glass.
I'm sorry. Why do I? It was, eh? Okay.
Jeff Glass, and the backup was Réjean Beauchemin.
Réjean Beauchemin. Right.
Yeah. 2 Western League goalies, which wasn't always the case for many years, if you remember, during a certain stretch of time. And the reason no one remembers the goalies is because of the sheer and utter dominance of the group. But I don't know if you've ever had a chance, Rod, in your travels to spend any time with Jeff or Réjean. There's probably a chance that you've done that. But 2 incredibly fine people, and I got goosebumps just thinking about 2005 again and seeing it all unfold right from the camp right through every single minute. That's one of those ones you treasure, because as we came to find out, that was a generational team, and a generational team that supplied a lot of 2 consecutive gold medals in best on best competitions at the Olympics. So there's another pretty good guy that I didn't mention in that group. He plays for Boston. His name is Bergeron. You may have heard of him. And sometimes people forget, because Crosby got a lot of the billing in his second year at 17. Patrice led that tournament in scoring with 13 points and was absolutely brilliant. And at that point, became the first Canadian, to my knowledge, to have won a World Men's Championship before he had a chance to win the World Junior. At this tournament, 2 guys have a chance to do the same thing, and Owen Power and Cole Perfetti, the Winnipeg Jets' top prospect.
For sure. Well, listen, Jeff Glass and Réjean Beauchemin, I'm sure, are great people, but as far as Team Canada goalies, not in the pantheon of Carey Price.
No.
Right? Even Marc-Andre Fleury. Shoot, Stéphane Facette. But anyways, Lou, this is why we bring you on. Right. Yeah, we could go on and on. Lou, always a pleasure, my man.
Junior week-long special.
Can you imagine? That would be fantastic. Lou, thanks. Merry Christmas. You're a good man. You're a good man. More importantly, more important than a tremendous broadcaster, a better man. Appreciate it, and enjoy the tourney.
Right back at you, pal. Be well.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for watching the RP Show on YouTube. And don't forget, we're live daily on YouTube from noon to 2 Eastern. If you like what you see, hit subscribe. And if you like the program, check around for other segments of The Rod Pedersen Show here on YouTube.